So I am a 24-year-old British person that spent 2 years in Australia. I pretty much travelled the whole country apart from 2 states. I didn't travel to Tasmania. I didn't actually go to Melbourne, but I did travel pretty much everywhere else in the country. And today I'm going to be ranking my top 5 favourite states in Australia that I went to from worst to best from my personal experience after 2 years in Australia. Before we get into the video, make sure you give the video a like, subscribe to the channel as well, and yeah, let's get into it. So I personally loved my time in Australia. I think it's my favourite country I've ever lived in. But the country of Australia is massive and there's so much to see, so much variety. Every state is so different to each other, and I had some pretty interesting, exciting experiences in all the different states in Australia. So let's start off this ranking. We're going to go from 5 to 1, 5 being my 5th favourite, number 1 being my favourite state that I travelled to in Australia. And number 5, I'm going with New South Wales. I'm going with New South Wales because it definitely wasn't my favourite state, mostly because I didn't travel that much of the state. I lived in Sydney for around 4 months, did a few little trips out of Sydney and stuff, which was pretty good. But generally I was in Sydney. Sydney's a great city, no doubt, and it was always has a special place for me because it was that first place that I arrived in Australia. I was literally buzzing with excitement arriving in Sydney. I lived there for 4 months with my mate and definitely made some amazing memories. Will always remember my time in Sydney, especially that first couple of weeks because the weather was amazing. It was hot, we were on the beaches and just living life. Sydney is definitely a beautiful city, and then getting out of the city there is definitely some incredible scenery as well. And overall, yeah, just had a really decent experience in Sydney. But it is 5th on this list due to the fact that I didn't really travel a lot of New South Wales. To be honest, it wasn't really on my list to travel New South Wales. A lot of the places I had planned to travel in Australia weren't in the state, so I only really stayed in Sydney, which is why it's 5th on this list. But Sydney's a great city. Number 4, we've got South Australia. So I spent around 5 months living in Adelaide in South Australia, and South Australia is a very, very nice state. I'd probably say an underrated state in my opinion. Not many people go there. In fact, I hardly met any other travellers that went to Adelaide. I feel like it's definitely one of the most underrated cities in Australia, no doubt about that. But not just Adelaide, when you get out of the city, it is amazing. We actually had 2 separate experiences in South Australia. We went there first for travel and we actually moved back there for work. The beaches in South Australia are so underrated. Even Adelaide's beaches, for me, they're better than Sydney's beaches. I think very, very underrated. Adelaide is a very, very nice city, very chilled out. When you get out of the city, like I said, the beaches are amazing, the coastline. When you get up into the hills, the Adelaide hills are literally beautiful. They've got wine regions like wineries and stuff, vineyards that go for miles. Some of the best nature, in fact some of our best hikes we did in Australia were in South Australia, especially close to Adelaide where there's some amazing nature. We just walk around and see like koalas and stuff in the trees. Very, very cool nature. We also did a coach when we went into the outback, which started in Adelaide, and we really got to see a lot more of South Australia. So a very beautiful state, and to be honest, a very underrated state. In 3rd place, we've got Queensland. Now, Queensland is a very interesting state. There's so much to see there. I had a lot of different experiences in Queensland. My first experience there, we went to Gold Coast and Brisbane. 2 very cool places. I've said on this channel before, I thought the Gold Coast was pretty overrated, particularly Surfers Paradise. But Brisbane's a beautiful city, lots to do in Brisbane, really cool there. I would go back to Brisbane, to be honest. Went up the coast to Bundaberg, which is where we did our farm work. We were there for like 4 months doing our regional farm work. We did loads of trips out of Bundaberg, went to the beaches, went to a few national parks, and got to see so much of central Queensland during our time there. We then did a few months traveling Australia after that, and we went up to far north Queensland. We're staying in Cairns. Cairns, as I've said, is a bit overrated, but when you get out of the town of Cairns, it is amazing. We did the Great Barrier Reef, which was such a cool experience. And overall, to be honest, out of all the states in Australia, Queensland is the one which I think we'd want to see more of, because even though we saw a decent amount, there's still a lot that we wanted to see in Queensland that we didn't actually see. So that's definitely very high on our list in terms of places to go back to in Australia. So Queensland comes in at number 3, particularly our experience of farm work. That was so memorable as well. In second place, we've got the Northern Territory. Now, I'm putting this at second on the list because out of my time in Australia, it was probably one of the most memorable experiences I had. We spent a couple of weeks in the Northern Territory and got to see quite a lot of it, and it is another very underrated state. I think it's the least populated state in Australia. There's not much up there at all, but the scenery is unbelievable. We started off in Alice Springs, which I've done videos on. It's a very dangerous town, a bit dodgy, but the whole experience there was great. Went out to Ayers Rock, Uluru as well, which was amazing. Got to see so much incredible experience in the outback. We then got the coach up to Darwin. We spent a week in Darwin, and Darwin is so cool. One of my favorite places in Australia. We did some trips from Darwin where we got to see some of the national parks up there. Litchfield National Park, which was amazing. We saw the crocodiles on the Adelaide River. And I like the Northern Territory because it's very different to a lot of other places I'd seen in Australia. It's fairly similar to like far north Queensland, but it almost feels like more like Southeast Asia when we were up there because it's right up in the tropics. It's so humid and hot. It almost doesn't feel like Australia. You're surrounded by jungle. I just loved my experience in the Northern Territory. The outback is one place which I would recommend anyone visits because I think a lot of people miss it off their list because they think there's nothing there. But honestly, the outback is such an insane place to visit. And Darwin as well. I think Darwin is another place which I would recommend anyone visits in Australia. Such a cool little vibrant town, and I thought the whole experience in the Northern Territory was really exciting. And number 1, my favourite state in Australia, I would say is Western Australia. This was the last place that we went to in Australia. We spent 9 months living in Perth, and Perth is one of the biggest reasons why it is my favourite state, is because it was definitely my favourite place that we lived in Australia. Definitely the best city in Australia in my opinion. Perth is amazing. The beaches along even just Perth, but WA in general has probably some of the best beaches in the world. Getting out of the city of Perth though, there's so much amazing nature. Some of the hikes we did was so good. I wish we got to travel a bit more of the West Coast, definitely. I think we want to go back to Perth and do more of the West Coast, but from what I saw of Western Australia, it is so nice. The weather in Western Australia as well is probably one of the best things about it. It's so hot and dry, constant blue skies all year round. And heading out of Perth, going to places like the Pinnacles Desert, went sandboarding. We did so many incredible things. Rottnest Island is beautiful. Went whale watching. Honestly, if you like beaches and that kind of lifestyle, for me, Western Australia is the best place in Australia for that sort of thing. So yeah, they are my top 5 states ranked in Australia. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Overall, the 2 that I want to go back to the most are Queensland because we didn't actually see as much as we wanted, and then I'd go back to Western Australia for sure. But I would live in Perth again, and I'd like to do a bit more of the West Coast. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, and yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon with another video.